Welcome back to Passionately Catholic. Today I have a very special Eucharistic miracle that I want to share with you. This one is one of my favorites. It's from Offida, Italy, from the 13th century. You know, this one really got me excited for a number of reasons. And I love Eucharistic miracles because I feel like they really help prove to us the legitimacy of the Blessed Sacrament, that it really does become Jesus' body, blood, soul, and divinity. So here's what happened. You have this woman who's in a pretty unhappy marriage, okay? Her name was Ricciarella. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that correctly. I do not speak Italian, but she's in a not great marriage with her husband, and she's really struggling over this. So she talks to her friends, of course, and tries to get some advice about, you know, how can I improve my marriage? Well, she gets some really bad advice, actually to commit a very serious sin, a sacrilege, in which they told her, get a host, get the Blessed Sacrament, and then heat it over the fire, and it'll turn to powder, and then take that powder and put it in your husband's food and drink, and then he'll love you more. Okay, so she's like, okay, so she goes to church, she goes to Mass, and she kind of fakes receiving communion. Back then they would receive on the tongue. You know, she lets it fall from her mouth into her dress, and she carries it back home. And she puts it on basically a piece of like tile, if you will, and puts that tile into the fire. Okay, now once it's placed into the fire and it starts to heat, it turns to flesh and blood. Okay, it turns to flesh and it starts to bleed. And she's horrified at this. So she starts throwing stuff on it like ash. She's trying to put it out, you know, stop it, you know, throw wax on it, whatever, trying to cover up her mistake, basically, and this doesn't take care of it, okay? Like, it stays flesh and it stays blood, and the blood stained the tile, okay, which absorbs some of the blood as well. So what does she do? She gets it out of the fire and she wraps it up like in this nice tablecloth, okay, like I imagine with lace and stuff like that. And she takes it out to the barn, and there's this big pile of refuse where all the gunk and, you know, manure from cleaning out the stalls of all the animals gets thrown, and all the refuse from inside the house, all that gets thrown on this pile. Okay, like imagine, you know, maybe a really awful compost pile, if you will. So she throws it in this pile, kind of like at the entrance of the barn, okay? Buries it, hides it inside this big pile, okay? When her husband comes home, all right, he brings his horse to the barn to take him into the barn, and the horse refuses to enter the barn. And he gets angry, okay? He's a somewhat violent man, perhaps, and he gets angry at his horse, and he gets to the point where he's even like beating his horse to get into the barn and into its stall. And the horse finally relents and enters the barn, but as the horse enters the barn, he faces the pile of refuse, okay? You know, all the junk there, okay, but the Blessed Sacrament is inside, like the animal, the horse, was able to recognize this, so he recognizes that, he walks in, and finally when he gets in to the barn, the horse kneels down on its knees facing the pile, okay, fantastic stuff. This goes on for 7 years, and it's not just the horse. Other animals, when they walk in and out of the barn, they face the Blessed Sacrament, which is buried in the pile. Now, the husband, this you know, infuriates him. He accuses his wife, and this makes things you know, worse. And so this happens all the time. Like when we're in a state of pain or struggle or need, when we don't turn to God and we turn to other things, it just makes things worse. Like we need to learn from this and just turn to God. So this makes it worse. Like, he gets angry at his wife even more now because he thinks she's cast some kind of spell on the barn, that the animals are acting really wild and weird, and, you know, they're doing this crazy thing, and he doesn't understand what's going on. Finally, after 7 years, she goes to confession, and she tells, like, she's sobbing, okay, and she tells the priest that she killed God, okay, so and then she's able to explain exactly what she did. Well, the priest is not going to let this fly. God bless this man, right? This dedicated holy servant of God. He goes out to the farm, okay, and he's not even concerned. The 13th century, okay, he's not even concerned about, you know, getting sick, digging in this pile of refuse, but he goes digging through the pile of refuse, and he pulls out the tablecloth, okay, and it is as if, according to his account, it is as if the host, which turned to flesh and blood, it is as if they had just been freshly wrapped, okay, and placed in there. He takes them out, okay, and they end up taking these to the church authorities, etc. And they end up, you can go see them in Offida, Italy today. They end up making a beautiful reliquary for the host, as well as for the tile, because the tile had absorbed the precious blood, okay? So you can't just dispose of that. Like, you can't just throw the tile. Are you kidding me? There's precious blood. So there's a reliquary with both the host and the tile that you can go see in Offida, Italy today. Now, key things that we can take away from this. The Blessed Sacrament is Jesus' body, blood, soul, and divinity, right? When when things are going bad, like turn to the Lord and not to the sacrilege. Let's not turn to sin. We do this. We think that by turning to sin or turning to things opposed to God, different comforts of the world, we think that those are going to make us happy and be comforted. Okay, so far from the truth, right? Like God is perfect goodness and truth and beauty and love and eternal life and perfect health. He offers us all of these things. We need to put ourselves in God's hands and put our trust in Him. Even though we might have to experience pain and discomfort and things in this life, He promises us the eternal reward of heaven. If this video was useful to you and you want to see more from Passionately Catholic, be sure to subscribe and like the video. Special thank you always goes out to all of our patrons who make these videos, who make everything that we do at Passionately Catholic possible. May God richly and abundantly bless you as well as our patrons, and I look forward to being in touch with another video again very soon.